Hey guys, Dan here with this week's TV news and reviews, the first show of 2020. We have a few news items for you. We didn't really do news last time because it was more of a best of 2019 show. So we've got a little bit in the news department, and then we have reviews of 4 shows. Not much has premiered really in the first week of 2020, but we have a couple new shows on Fox and a couple new shows on Netflix. So we're going to get to all of that coming up. First, though, the biggest award show in January is the Golden Globes, and we come in with a bang. It was on January 5th, about a week ago, and it was a pretty good show overall. Obviously, I'm going to focus more really on the TV portion of the awards, but I think a lot of the movie winners and nominees were in the right direction. I loved Brad Pitt's speech. I loved Michelle Williams' speech. There were definitely some really solid moments there. From really both sides of things, TV and movies. But in terms of the Ricky Gervais hosting bit, this is the 5th time and supposedly final time he's going to host. He's been saying that, though. I think the 3rd time was supposed to be his final, and then the 4th time was going to be his final. So, I don't know. I know he got some criticism for a lot of his jokes. There were, they were a little more mean-spirited maybe than even usual for him. In terms of the criticism, I thought the monologue was kind of funny. I think there were definitely some good jokes in there about some, kind of like fair games, or like, okay, Leonardo DiCaprio likes younger women. Like, I don't know, that's not like a surprise. That's not necessarily like a gotcha. Like, all right, yeah, he likes to date younger women, whatever. But the whole memes that have come up about like Tom Hanks's face during the monologue of him just sort of looking, I don't know if disgust is the right word, but just not impressed with Ricky Gervais. I thought some of the jokes were well crafted. I thought some of the jokes, had good punchlines. My issue with the whole Ricky Gervais bit these days is just that he's like, oh, I don't care what Hollywood thinks of me, and I'm gonna poke fun at everybody and poke holes in things and da 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 da. But then, I don't know, he is kind of one of them. Like, he's one of the Hollywood elites too. So it's like it runs a little thin there. But also, every other joke ended with him being like, "Oh, I don't care. It's my last time hosting." Yeah, we got it. Okay, just tell the joke and move on. So I don't know. I mean, there was a good Jeffrey Epstein joke and a good joke about the lack of diversity going on, but I don't know. For the most part, I was sort of unimpressed with his performance. One of my favorite, actually, bits of the whole thing, and by bit I just mean like moment of the whole Globes, was when Brad Pitt was doing his very great speech for a wonderful film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And he just ended it by saying something to the effect of, if you see a chance to be nice to someone tomorrow, take it. We could use it. I think it was such a simple moment, and yet very poignant. There were a lot of, like, Michelle Williams, I loved her speech, but it was certainly very political. There's no denying that. But Brad Pitt, just saying that was a moment I think everybody can get behind. Whatever, partisan, whatever, Republican, Democrat, I think everybody can get behind the idea of being nice to someone, because I think he's right. We do need it. But let's talk about the winners in TV. Succession is a show I do not watch, and it won a bunch of awards. It won Best Drama. It won Best Actor for a drama in Brian Cox. I don't know. I guess it's good. It's one I've heard a lot of good things about. In fact, most of the things, I kind of talked about this when the nominations went out, that there are no broadcast network shows nominated for anything at the Golden Globes. It's all either streaming or HBO or maybe Showtime as well. So really the only thing that I watch that got an award. I've seen a few of the nominees, but the only things that won that I've seen is Fleabag. Phoebe Waller-Bridge won for that, and then of course it also won for Best Musical or Comedy. And then Rami Youssef, I just reviewed the Rami show a few weeks ago on my show, and I liked it a lot. I gave it, I believe, a B plus. So good stuff there. Fosse Verdon, I hear, is great. Michelle Williams won for that. Again, she gave a very powerful and moving speech. Chernobyl, I just started watching. Stellan Skarsgård won for supporting actor for that. I was a little less impressed with that than I think some people have been. And that also won Best Miniseries or Television Film. The only other one that I had seen that was nominated was Unbelievable, which I thought was excellent. So I would have given it to that, but, there's a few I haven't seen in the mix. So, for the most part, because most of it is not broadcast stuff, it's and I do see a lot of stuff on Netflix and whatever, but I'm still catching up on some. So a lot of the things I've seen were maybe nominated but didn't win. Like Mrs. Maisel didn't win anything this year. Christina Applegate didn't win for Dead to Me. Bill Hader didn't win for Barry. Henry Winkler didn't win for Barry. So, there's things that I watched that just didn't get the love. So, I don't know. It's sort of, it's just odd for me that we're in this day and age where nothing, everything on network TV seems stale, I guess, in the eyes of the industry. But look, a lot of these shows on broadcast networks still get 15 million viewers, a week when you factor in the DVR watching over the next, week or whatever after airing. So, when you compare that to some little show on Netflix, I mean, two of the shows I'm reviewing this week on Netflix, Messiah and Spinning Out, I don't think I would have even heard of if I wasn't seeking things out to watch for this show. Now, certainly things pop on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, yes, absolutely, But for every, Russian doll, there's, 5 Spinning Outs. So I just think it's interesting that the industry has just sort of seen broadcast television as, a dinosaur. And in some ways, it most certainly is. But in a lot of ways, it's not. And millions of eyeballs are still on those shows every week. So I just think it's odd. So 2 of my news items actually are going to be about shows on ABC. We're going to start with The Conners because my network here, or my channel on YouTube is sort of, I don't know, almost been built in the last year and a half on Roseanne and Conners reviews. So I thought there were a couple interesting items with The Conners. Number one is they're going to be doing a live episode. ABC is sort of all about the whole live thing lately. They've been doing the like Broadway musical type things live. And then they have been doing the Norman Lear live in front of a studio audience shows. So I guess it makes sense. There's so many Broadway vets on The Conners, specifically Laurie Metcalf and John Goodman, but, other members of the cast as well. Sarah Gilbert hosted Saturday Night Live before. So I think this will be interesting. It's going to take place the night of the New Hampshire primary. And that's why it's sort of going to be a live episode, because they're going to update it with, I guess, live statistics of what's going on in the election. And basically, Darlene's kids are doing some sort of school project about elections or the Electoral College or something political about voting. And so they're going to do a live episode about that. I'm very interested in this. I mean, I love when a sitcom that we know and love one way goes in front of a live version of the show in another way. Like 30 Rock was interesting to do live because that was normally shot with a single camera, and so the couple episodes 30 Rock did live, the whole look was different. Of course, we're used to seeing Tina Fey live from SNL, Alec Baldwin too, for that matter. But it was very interesting to see that. But then you have something like Will and Grace that has done live episodes, and that shot in front of a live studio audience. Anyway, interesting, come to think of it, that Will and Grace have not done a live show in the revival, because I feel like they certainly could. They did, I believe, 2 in the later years of the original run. But Roseanne and The Conners have never done a live episode. The whole live episode thing just hasn't been in fancy in the last I don't know, 40, 50 years, really. You know, there were a couple sitcoms in the last 25 years that have done it. Rock was one. ROC, remember that show in the early 90s on Fox? So that did a whole season live in its final season, and then the NBC show from like 2 years ago, Undateable, did a live season as well, its final season. So it's been done, and it is fun. And I think The Conners is going to be a great choice to do it because they're already in front of a studio audience anyway. So I'm really excited for that. So that's news item number one about The Conners. And then number two, they are in negotiations right now for a third season of the show. There's not another new episode of The Conners for another couple of weeks, so I didn't want to wait to share that information with you guys, because I know you guys love hearing about The Conners as much as I love telling you. So basically, the network said that they are open to The Conners running as long as the cast wants to do it, essentially. It is tied with Modern Family for ABC's #1 sitcom in the 18 to 49 demo, and guess what? Modern Family's last season is just starting, or well, I guess the second half of the season is just starting. So this is it. Like come the fall, Modern Family goes away. So The Conners, it's so weird to with reboot fever and everything. So many reboots have kind of tanked. And Roseanne certainly could have done that once they killed off the character, but then they brought it back as The Conners, and it's like, I mean, the ratings aren't as good as when it was Roseanne, but for me, the quality is better, and it's interesting that the #1 show, 18 to 49, at least sitcom wise, once Modern Family leaves, is going to be The Conners pretty much, unless they really get some huge hit out of the park next season. It's probably going to be The Conners. So very exciting news about that they're going to be looking at season 3 for that. Next, then, we stay on ABC and we talk about Justin Chambers. This just came down yesterday or the day before that Justin Chambers from Grey's Anatomy is leaving after 15 years on the show. 15 plus years, because I think it's in season 16 right now. And I have not seen this show with regularity in about 11 years, 12 years. I sort of bowed out in like season 3 or 4, but one of my roommates was real into it and was like binging it a bunch. So I've seen a handful of episodes just in random seasons, and I would ask him like, okay, who's dead on the show, who's still on, whatever. There's only 4 original members from the show, and now with Justin Chambers going, there's only going to be 3, which is Meredith Grey herself, and then James Pickens, who ironically got his start on Roseanne, and then who is the gal? Chandra Wilson. So they are now going to be the 3 lone members of the original cast. I mean, it's hard to get 16 years out of the same actors, but yeah, Justin basically said in a statement, he played Dr. Alex, Dr. Karev. He basically said that he respects everybody, but it's time to move on, basically. He said, there's no time to say goodbye to a show and character that's defined so much of my life for the past 15 years. For some time now, however, I have hoped to diversify my acting roles and career choices, and as I turn 50 and am blessed with my remarkable supportive wife and 5 wonderful children, now is that time. First of all, 50, dude looks as good now as he did when the show started. I know he's got Hollywood money, and I'm sure he's got some Botox or whatever, but he looks just as good now as he did 15 years ago for sure. So the fact that he's pushing 50 is like insane. But look, good for him, and it's true. Talk about diversifying his acting roles. I don't know if I've ever seen him in anything else. Some of the other people, even while they were on the show, like Sandra Oh, you would see pop up in movies sometimes. Or, Katherine Heigl obviously was doing a lot of things at the time. And even Derek Shepherd, McDreamy, what the heck's his real name? Well, that's going to bother me. Patrick Dempsey. You would see him pop up as the love interest in a movie or whatever. Justin Chambers, I've not really seen him do a whole lot of things outside of Grey's Anatomy. So it makes sense, talk about being typecast. I mean, look, the thing's going to run in syndication forever. He's going to be making money for the rest of his life on the 15, 16 years he did on Grey's Anatomy. But, yeah, I mean, I'm with him. I think, first of all, personally, I think the show should probably just die anyway, but it is such a ratings bonanza for ABC still. It is, so, the Connors and Modern Family are tied, for number one, 18 to 49 in the sitcom department, but ABC's number one scripted show is Grey's Anatomy, and I think that's 18 to 49 and also Everyone. So it's just so funny to me that in a season 16 that a show could be that kind of a powerhouse still. But it still gets talked about. It still gets brought up in the news, and I'm talking about it right now. So honestly, good for Grey's Anatomy for plunging along. Again, I gave up a long time ago on it. I don't watch it, and it's funny. The people I know generally that do still watch it sort of watch it as a okay, well, I've stuck with it now for this long. I may as well see it through to the end. So there's nobody I know, even my roommate, that is still oh my god, these new episodes. I can't wait for more Greys. But look, the ratings are still there, so God bless. They're going to keep chugging along, but they're going to be doing it without Dr. Alex Karev, Justin Chambers. What's weird is his final episode aired 2 months ago, before the fall break, and nobody knew it at the time, outside of, I guess, the cast and the crew, but it's over, so they're not going to have a big send-off for him. They didn't kill his character, so he could return at some point, Noah Wyle style from ER, but I do think it's weird. Maybe we'll find out something, in the next 6 months or a year that, there was some behind-the-scenes drama and so didn't like him, or maybe he's part of the Me Too movement. I don't know. I don't want to think that, but it is weird that they sort of gave his character his last episode already. I don't know. Sort of odd. And we wrap up the news with This Week in Reboots. I talked a little bit about this a few months ago, but the NBC Peacock app is getting ready to launch the streaming service, and they've got a couple of reboots in the works for that, including Punky Brewster. But I think the big ticket item is going to be the Saved by the Bell reboot. This is a show that, much like Full House, I suppose, has really stood the test of time and the generations, and people seem to have such a fondness for people at Bayside High. I was never a huge fan. I mean, it was on, and I've seen, I don't know, probably a dozen or 15 episodes, and it's fine, but it wasn't one of my go-to shows. But the real question was, is Mark Paul Gosselaar going to be a part of the show? The synopsis I read, that I passed on to you a few months ago, is that basically he is the mayor. Zach now is the mayor of the town or whatever, and wants to, or governor, I guess, that he's going to try to do a bunch of things that are not good for the town, and so AC Slater and Jesse Spano, who I guess are married from what I read, are trying to stop him. But there was a question of is he even going to be in the show? Because of course he is on Mixed Dish right now, and he's got his hand in a few different things, but he is producing the reboot, and it turns out now, yes, he will be in at least 3 episodes of the reboot. Now, I don't know how many episodes there's going to be total. Usually there's only 10 or 12 on a streaming service, so there might only be 10 episodes, but he would be in 3 of those. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think the whole streaming service thing is basically out of control, but honestly, I'll probably end up getting NBC Peacock as long as it's less than $7 a month or something. It's probably going to be worth it. I mean, NBC and Universal's library is very deep, and I think there will be a lot of great shows on there, and there may be some shows, as a I don't like to call myself like a TV historian, but like I love old TV. I love discovering shows I've never heard of from like the 60s, and that kind of thing. I would love to think that NBC Universal would put some of their like real old and forgotten shows up there because I mean they own it. It's not like it costs them anything to throw them up there, except I guess the bandwidth or whatever. But like I know how that works. But I think it would be really fun to have some of those older shows. I wish CBS did more of that with All Access because their library is also very deep, seeing as how they're owned by Paramount. But again, like they're not throwing up a lot of their like more obscure stuff, which I would love to see. But we'll see what happens, when NBC Peacock launches. I think Saved by the Bell is going to be one of their flagship shows, though. Apple TV had the morning show, Disney Plus had the Mandalorian. I think Saved by the Bell, the reboot, is going to be one of the shows that NBC Peacock is really pushing. So, I'm sure I'll watch it, at least for this show. I don't know if I'm going to be a fan, but I think it's cool that they got Mark Paul Gosselaar back. And he's never been shy about really embracing that Zach Morris character and the whole thing. I mean, Dustin Diamond sort of shies away from all of that stuff, but, him and Mario Lopez have always, I think, been very thankful and know, like, hey, this is where our bread was buttered for years and years. This is what got us to the dance. So I like that he's going to be doing that. So let's move into the reviews. Like I said, it's a pretty light period of the year, so there's only 4 shows to talk about. The latter 2 are going to be from Netflix, but first, 2 shows on Fox, and the first one up is Deputy. This is a Western police drama, I guess, and it stars Stephen Dorff and a few other people, most of which I don't really know. Brian Van Holt I've seen in other things, but, certainly don't know him by name. And essentially, in the pilot, this guy, the sheriff of the town, dies. And it takes place in Los Angeles, but it feels like it takes place in Texas, to be honest, which I'm sure is on purpose because it's like that Western style. But essentially, due to some very, very old rule forged back in the Wild West days, this guy, Bill Hollister, becomes the deputy sergeant or acting sheriff in the midst of a new, election or what have you. And basically, he has to now run things, and he's like, renegade, and, he doesn't play by his own, he plays by his own rules. And so they sack him with this very petite but tough lesbian, and they really hit you over the head with that bit, who is played by Bex Taylor Klaus, who I don't know, but she's like my favorite part of the show. She plays Brianna Bishop, and she's basically assigned to Bill's security detail because he has, a lot of enemies out there and what have you. So that's basically what all happens in the pilot. We get to know these characters a little bit. There's a little bit of action. Actually, there's a decent bit of action, I suppose, to be fair. But boy, I really didn't like this show. It's just so very by the numbers that nothing really comes together. There's nothing really new about it. I mean, I guess having it seem like a sort of lawless Wild West type of thing is sort of new in the modern era. Of course, we had Wild West shows galore in the 50s and 60s, but, in the modern era, okay, that's maybe a little bit novel, but, like I said, they really hit you over the head with the whole, dichotomy between him and the lesbian girl assigned to his care, and, they're back and they get to know each other over tacos in the one scene, and it's kind of nice, it's kind of a cute scene, but at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know. They're all just such stereotypes. They didn't talk about her lesbianism for the first few scenes that we saw her, but it was like, it was so clear from the get-go. I mean, they really made it obvious, hitting it home. I like Stephen Dorff an okay amount. Like, I wouldn't say he's one of my go-tos, but the things I've seen him in typically, he's pretty decent in. But he's so over the top in this. I don't know if you guys will remember this show, but it's one of my like cult favorites that I grew up with, and that's the TV show Sledgehammer, in which it's basically a spoof, a cop spoof, and they're sort of playing off that whole super machismo Clint Eastwood type of policeman. And David Rash does an amazing job. I still watch the episodes today and laugh just as hard as I did literally 30 plus years ago when they were first on. But like Steven Dorff has this sort of like gravelly, one-liner sort of take to this character, and it's so cornball, it's so over the top. It's just like laughable. And whereas in Sledgehammer you're supposed to laugh at it, here it's just like, all right, dude, I get it. You're all man, And then at the same time, it's also got this very like sort of left leaning agenda a little bit. Which, I mean, look, I'm a Democrat. I'm a gay man, so it's like I get all that stuff, but it seems out of place here completely. So whether I agree with their stance on things or not, it barely even matters. It's just not done that well. Now, I will say the action sequences are done pretty well. They've clearly, Fox has clearly put some money into this show. And I think, the gal that plays his security detail, the lesbian, is, she's, for me, the best part of the show. She's the most interesting part of the show, even though she is kind of a caricature at some points. And then the one gal in the police force is also pretty interesting. I like her too. That's I want to get her name here. Sienna Goines? Goyne? I never heard of her, but Goines is her last name. She plays one of the deputies, and apparently she's only in the first episode, which is the one I watched, so I don't know if she gets written out or something. I think another actress comes in to replace her, but it's the same character. I don't know. But anyway, I liked her and the character, so whatever. It's so very by the book and sort of laughable. So I cannot recommend Deputy. It's a D+ for me on that one. Up next is Flirty Dancing, and this is on Fox as well. This is from executive producer and host of the show, Jenna Dewan, who I know most from, I guess, like the Step Up movies, but also she was married to Channing Tatum for a while. Jenna Dewan Tatum, but they're divorced now. So, but she's been in a bunch of stuff, and more to the point, she's a very, very trained dancer. She's gone on tour with Janet and Pink and Christina Aguilera. So, she does some acting here and there, but I think she's most known for her sort of modeling and dancing stuff. And she's, very attractive. And I don't know if this was her concept or if they just brought it to her and she's the host. But essentially, it's a dating show. And what they do is take take one person and two other people, like two other, gendered. So if they have one girl, they have two guys, and vice versa. I guess at some point they'll probably do, one guy and two other guys for a gay flirty dancing or whatever. But obviously they gotta get their ground before they can do that. But so in the episode I watched, it was the first half was one guy picking over two girls, and then the second half was one girl picking over two guys. And basically, the whole point is that these guys don't speak to one another on the quote-unquote date. Their date is really a 4 or 5 minute dance routine that they spend weeks rehearsing with their prospective choreographers, and then they meet wherever it is, at the park or at a concert hall or wherever, and they go do their dance. They part. They don't kiss. They don't talk. They don't even know each other's names. And then the main person has to choose from the two different people. The stuff between the dancing is a little bit much, as all reality shows kind of are to one degree or another, I suppose. But in terms of concept, I actually kind of liked this. It was cute. I mean, I don't do dating shows. I think the last crop of dating shows I did were things um, like Baggage, I guess, on GSN maybe was the last one I really was kind of into, which was sort of funny in its own way. But I mean, I watched stuff when I was growing up. I used to watch Love Connection, and Studs was big for a couple of years when I was younger. The Newlywed Game, obviously they're already together, so I don't really count that as a dating show. Um, but I don't watch The Bachelor. I don't get into that kind of thing. But I thought the concept of this was interesting. I mean, I don't really care much about dancing either. I don't watch like the Dancing with the Stars, and So You Think You Can Dance and stuff. And actually, I think Jenna Dewan had something to do with the World of Dance that they did like 2 summers ago or whatever with J Lo. So obviously, look, she's known for her dancing, so I think it's cool to have her host. I think she's a good host. I think she's, an enjoyable personality. And I think the concept is interesting. The whole setup and like getting to know the people, I didn't really care so much about that. But I liked the dancing, and I sort of liked seeing who the person would pick, if I'm being honest. And they picked some real interesting people. Like the first one is not what I would call, like I don't want to say be mean or whatever. But they're not what I would call like TV attractive people. Like I like heavy guys, so for me, this dude, was attractive. But like, you watch The Bachelor and it's ripped guys and they're super young and super hot, whatever. Maybe they're not super young, but they're super hot, I guess, in the traditional sense. But so I like that they came out, the first couple that they had was, on the heavier side. And, especially when you think of, dancing, maybe you think of people that are lighter on their feet or whatever. So I thought that was a really cool choice that they did with that. The second half, the girl they picked, God bless her, and they focused a lot on her very annoying and childlike voice, how she sounds like a 6-year-old, and they were not wrong. It was, to be honest, it was a little grating to watch. I understand what they're doing, like, they want to give everybody a platform, and hey, you don't have to be, a 10 here, like on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. You can be a 7, and and still enter in our world on Flirty Dancing. So I'll give them a couple points for going outside the box. I'll give them some points for the concept, because I really do like the concept, and I'll give them some points for Jenna Dewan. I think she's a good host. But the stuff in between the dancing, like the choreographers teaching them how to do the dances, that stuff bored me. So, I do take some points away from that. But to be honest, I liked this a lot more than I thought I would. I give Flirty Dancing a B. So next we go to the 2 Netflix shows. These both premiered on the 1st of the year. So these are, really the first TV shows of 2020. And first we start with Messiah, which is starring Michelle Monaghan, who I'll get into her, but anyway, it's it's a thriller, action, drama, maybe even a little sci-fi sort of series. And it's executive produced in part by Mark Burnett and Roma Downey, who brought us the Bible miniseries, and they're very, very religious. So it doesn't surprise me that this has a very sort of religious bent to it. Not in the sense that like you must believe in this, but the concept is as follows. It takes place in present day, but there is a man who appears to possibly be the return of Jesus. At least that's what he's claiming in the Middle East. He sort of came from nowhere. Nobody knows his origins, and he may be performing some sort of miracles that the CIA is basically going to try and solve what's going on here. And I believe the first season is 10 episodes. Yep. Like most new Netflix shows these days, and they'll see how it goes, I guess. But Michelle Monaghan is the star of it. She's the lead CIA agent, and I used to really like her. Source Code was maybe the first time I saw her, the Jake Gyllenhaal movie, which I love that movie, and I thought she was really good in it. But I don't know. She seems to the last 5-6 years, just play the same character, and she plays it here again, and there's just nothing new to it, and the dialogue is so sort of clunky and at times confusing that I'm not sure she's even performing it up to her usual average standards. So she's definitely fallen a little bit for me. I used to like her a lot more, but she just doesn't seem to have a lot of range. The guy that is portraying the quote-unquote Messiah, I think he is doing a pretty good job. But again, the dialogue is sort of clunky enough that it maybe doesn't matter. So I don't know. I mean, I would imagine that different things are happening as the series progresses. You know, in a pilot, you have to sort of set up everything and everyone. But I don't know. I think that they're going into, maybe more miracles down the line. I would hope. I would hope that the other episodes are a little more interesting than the pilot, I guess. But we just don't see a lot going on. I think the storyline itself is a little confusing from the start because it starts with all the Messiah stuff, and that stuff is interesting, but then anytime it goes to the U.S. and the CIA and Michelle Monaghan, it's just like bogged down in like average, boring, dialogue, uninteresting storytelling. So I think there's an interesting concept here. I'm all for a sort of mystery about like, oh, is this the second coming, and all that kind of thing, and maybe we'll find out it is. I don't know. But overall, it just didn't really, scream at me like that I wanted to watch more episodes of this. I think I'll probably just watch this first one. It just didn't do it for me. I think the storytelling is just kind of all over the place. And the acting from, like I said, like from the guy playing Jesus and really all the Middle Eastern actors is pretty solid. But then every time it goes to the US of A, it's just rather boring. So I leave Messiah with a C-. The other show on Netflix is Spinning Out, and this also premiered on January 1st. There is 10 episodes of this, but it's a very different show from Messiah. It is a drama and sort of maybe a romantic drama. They haven't delved in too far to that yet, but I wouldn't be surprised. And it's essentially about this young ice skater who suffers a big injury, and she is trying to restart her career as now a pairs skater. She was used to doing solo stuff, but now they want to pair her up. And meanwhile, there's a lot of stuff going on in her family with, maybe some mental illness or, some sort of dark secrets maybe in the family. So it's interesting enough. The lead gal, Kea Scodelario, I'm going to say is how you pronounce that. She has popped up in several things that I've seen recently. Most recent, I guess, is she was the star of the alligator horror movie Crawl that came out last summer. That was, fun. I mean, it was a check your brain at the door kind of movie, but it was fun. And I think she's a good little actress. I mean, she's popped up in a bunch of things. She was in that Zac Efron movie briefly about Ted Bundy. She was also in the Maze Runner movies, which I don't really like those, but there was some good acting in it. So she's popped up a bunch, and I think her character here is interesting enough that I don't think will get boring. It seems rather soapy, which Netflix is sort of branching into this soapy melodrama genre lately, because they have the Heartstrings show with Dolly Parton, they have Virgin River, which I reviewed just a couple of weeks ago, and now they've got this Spinning Out. Again, as of yet, I don't know what the romantic component, if any, is going to be for this show, but at least from the pilot, I like the concept of like the sort of fallen athlete, and sort of shifting it in a new direction. Like, okay, well, maybe you can't do the singles anymore, but what if we try and train for this other thing? And of course, she's resisting and all of that. I am curious to delve more into the family dynamic and the family psyche and the family history, because obviously, as most young athletes have, a very pushy parent or two. We've seen that in I, Tonya and some other things. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I don't think I will really continue watching the rest of these episodes. It's sort of like Flirty Dancing. I can grade it on like, okay, here's what I think about the show and the concept, but it doesn't mean I am necessarily going to watch more of them. Even though I liked Flirty Dancing, it was fine. But I think the show is decent. It has potential. I would be interested to see at least storylines of the next few episodes and to see sort of how it develops that family dynamic. And I think she's a good actress. I think she has potential. I don't know if she can do Oscar caliber material, but in the few different things I've seen her in, she certainly has a little bit of range, which I like. This is more dramatic and less, action intensive than some of the other things I've seen her in. But yeah, overall, not bad, slightly above average. I give Spinning Out a C+ on Netflix. So that will do it for the show. Next week, we'll probably start diving into like more 5 or 6 new reviews per show. That was sort of the ratio I was trying for the end of last year. It all depends on what shows are coming out. Netflix seems to have 1 or 2 shows every week, so we can almost always count on that. But networks now are going to start pulling out their mid-season replacement series. So I'll be reviewing a lot of new broadcast network series as well in the next few weeks. So, kind of shorter and sweeter. Well, I don't know if it was sweeter, but it was certainly shorter than some of my TV reviews. But hopefully you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you back next week for another episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.